They say you never really know someone until you live with them. What they don't tell you is that sometimes you don't know them until they're bleeding you dry with a smile on their face. My name is Andrew Collins, and I'm an emergency room nurse at Denver General. I've seen people at their absolute worst. Overdoses, car crashes, heart attacks, domestic violence victims. I've held dying strangers' hands and watched families fall apart in waiting rooms. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what my own girlfriend would do to me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It started with small things. Brooke Lawson, my girlfriend of 2 years, began acting strange about 3 months ago. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. She's a digital marketer for some tech startup downtown, always talking about conversion rates and customer acquisition costs as if they were critically important. But this was different. "Hey babe, can you cover dinner tonight?" she'd ask, scrolling through her phone instead of looking at me. "My card's acting weird." Or, "Andrew, I'm running low on cash. Can you spot me for groceries?" The requests got bigger, more frequent, and Brooke got more secretive. I remember the exact moment I knew something was seriously wrong. It was a Tuesday night in October, and I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour shift. A construction worker had come in with a severed finger, a teenager had overdosed on fentanyl, and an elderly woman had died of a stroke while her family screamed at me to save her. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and looking forward to nothing more than collapsing on the couch with Brooke and some takeout. Instead, I walked into our apartment to find her pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and urgent. "You know I can't send you that much," she was saying. "Not all at once. People will notice." I froze in the doorway, still wearing my scrubs, my work bag heavy in my hand. "I love you too," she whispered into the phone. "Just give me more time." She turned and saw me standing there. Her face went white, then red, then she forced a smile that looked like it physically hurt. "Oh, hey honey, you're home early." "It's 9:30, I said slowly. "Same time I always get home on Tuesdays." "Right, of course." She tucked her phone behind her back like a teenager hiding something from their parents. "How was work?" I stared at her for a long moment. Brooke was beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into restaurants. Blonde hair, green eyes, the sort of smile that made you want to trust her with your life savings. Which, as it turned out, was exactly the problem. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. "Just work stuff. You know how it is." I knew how it was, all right. I also knew that Brooke's work didn't require declarations of love or secretive money transfers. But I was tired, and part of me didn't want to know the truth. So I let it slide. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was not listening to my best friend Anita Rodriguez, a fellow nurse who'd worked alongside me for 5 years. Anita had the kind of street smarts that came from growing up in East Denver, and she could smell bullshit from 3 counties away. "Something's off about that girl," she told me during our lunch break the next day. We were sitting in the hospital cafeteria, picking at sad sandwiches and drinking coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through old socks. "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "She's always asking you for money, Andrew, and you always give it to her." "It's not like that. We're in a relationship. Couples help each other out." Anita raised an eyebrow. "When's the last time she helped you out?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Brooke hadn't paid for dinner in months. She'd stopped contributing to rent, claiming her company was restructuring and her paychecks were delayed. She'd even started using my Netflix account because hers had been temporarily suspended. "She's going through a rough patch," I said weakly. "Andrew." Anita leaned forward, her dark eyes serious. "I've known you since nursing school. You're one of the smartest, most capable people I've ever met. You can intubate a patient in the back of a moving ambulance and diagnose a heart attack from across the room. But when it comes to women, you're dumber than a box of rocks." "Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm serious. This girl is using you." I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Deep down, I knew Anita was right. I'd known it for weeks, maybe months. But admitting it meant admitting that I'd been played by someone I thought I loved. The third person to warn me was my older brother, Mason. Mason was an ex-cop who now worked private security, and he had the cynical worldview that came with years of dealing with humanity's worst impulses. He'd never liked Brooke, though he'd been polite enough to keep his opinions to himself. Until that weekend. I'd invited him over to watch the Broncos game, and Brooke had disappeared halfway through the first quarter, claiming she needed to run errands. She'd asked to borrow my car, and I'd handed over the keys without thinking twice. "She's playing you," Mason said the moment she left. "Not you too." "Andrew, I've seen this before. The mysterious phone calls, the constant need for money, the way she disappears at random times. She's either using drugs or she's got another man, maybe both. That's ridiculous. Is it? When's the last time you had access to her phone? When's the last time she let you pick her up from work? Hell, when's the last time you even saw her workplace? I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Brooke had always been vague about her job. I'd never met her co-workers, never seen her office. She claimed her company had strict policies about visitors, but now that I thought about it, that seemed pretty convenient. She loves me, I said, but even I could hear how pathetic it sounded. Maybe she does, Mason said. But she loves something else more, and whatever that something is, it's costing you money. That night, after Brooke returned my car and went to bed early claiming a headache, I did something I'd never done before. I checked our shared bank account. So what I found made me freeze. Over the past 3 months, there had been a series of withdrawals I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, 50 here, 100 there, but they had grown progressively larger. The most recent was for $800, withdrawn just that afternoon while I was at work. I sat in my home office staring at the computer screen, feeling like the world's biggest fool. The woman sleeping in my bed, the woman I'd been planning to propose to, was systematically draining our shared account. And I'd been too blind, too trusting, too stupidly in love to notice. I was about to close the laptop when I noticed something else. The withdrawals weren't random. They followed a pattern. Every Tuesday and Friday, like clockwork. And they'd all been made from the same ATM, one located across town, nowhere near Brooke's supposed workplace. I grabbed my phone and opened the Maps app. The ATM was in a sketchy part of town, surrounded by pawn shops, liquor stores, and a couple of dive bars. Not exactly the kind of neighborhood where a successful digital marketer would have any legitimate business, but it was exactly the kind of neighborhood where Tyler Ray lived. Tyler Ray, Brooke's ex-boyfriend, the one she claimed to have no contact with, the one she said was ancient history. I'd met Tyler exactly once, at a mutual friends party about a year ago. He was the kind of guy who wore expensive clothes, but always looked slightly dirty, like he'd slept in his car. Charming in a sleazy way, with the sort of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. Brooke had been nervous around him, jumpy in a way I'd never seen before or since. "He's bad news," she'd told me later. "I'm so glad I got away from him." Apparently, she hadn't gotten as far away as she'd claimed. I spent the rest of the night lying awake, staring at the ceiling while Brooke slept peacefully beside me. Every small sound made me want to grab her shoulders and shake her awake, demand answers, force her to explain where our money was going and why she was lying to my face. But I didn't, because part of me still hoped I was wrong. Part of me still wanted to believe that there was some innocent explanation for everything. That hope died the next morning when Brooke's phone buzzed with a text message while she was in the shower. The phone was lying on the nightstand, and the message preview was visible on the lock screen. "Baby, I need more. The guys are getting impatient. Please don't make me beg." The sender was listed as T. I stared at that message for a full minute, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't work stress or temporary financial problems. This was betrayal, pure and simple. Brooke emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, humming some pop song under her breath. She looked beautiful and carefree, like she didn't have a worry in the world, like she wasn't systematically destroying the man who loved her. "Morning, handsome," she said, kissing my cheek. "Want me to make coffee?" "Sure," I managed to say. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand, glanced at the screen, and I watched her face change. The color drained from her cheeks, and her hand trembled slightly as she deleted the message. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" That was the moment I knew for certain that everything I'd built with Brooke was a lie, and that was the moment I decided to do something about it. The next few days were torture. I went through the motions of our relationship, shared meals, conversations about our days, watching Netflix together on the couch. While inside, I was screaming. Every smile felt like a knife twist. Every casual lie about where she'd been or what she'd done made me want to explode. But I held it together, because I needed to know the full extent of what I was dealing with before I made my move. I started paying attention, really paying attention, and what I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Brooke wasn't just taking money from our shared account. She was borrowing from our mutual friends, spinning sob stories about my supposed gambling addiction or secret debt problems. She'd convinced my coworker Jennifer to loan her $300 for emergency car repairs. She'd gotten $200 from our neighbor Mike, claiming I was too proud to ask for help with medical bills. The worst part? She was using my reputation as collateral. Everyone knew I was responsible, trustworthy, good for the money. So when Brooke came to them with tearful stories about my fictional problems, they believed her without question. I discovered all this through careful detective work. A casual conversation with Jennifer about overtime shifts led to her mentioning the loan. A beer with Mike resulted in him awkwardly offering to help with my financial situation. Each revelation was like a punch to the gut. But the real bombshell came from Brooke's sister, Chelsea. Chelsea was everything Brooke wasn't: honest, straightforward, and completely incapable of keeping secrets. She was also a gossip of the highest order, which normally annoyed me but proved invaluable in this situation. I ran into her at the grocery store on a Thursday evening, and she immediately launched into a monologue about Brooke's latest drama. "I swear your girlfriend is going to give me gray hair," Chelsea said, examining avocados with the intensity of a diamond appraiser. "All this stuff with Tyler is driving me crazy." I kept my expression neutral. "Tyler? Her ex? The one with the gambling problem? She's been helping him out financially, which I think is totally insane, but you know how Brooke is about lost causes." "Right," I said slowly. "How much has she been helping him?" Chelsea waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, thousands at this point. She says he's getting threats from some loan shark types, and she can't just let him get hurt. I told her it's not her responsibility anymore, but she won't listen." Thousands, plural. "She mentioned something about that," I lied smoothly. "I just wish she'd told me how serious it was." "Well, she probably doesn't want to worry you. Plus, she knows you never liked Tyler." That was true enough, though never liked was putting it mildly. "Has she said anything about how long this is going to go on?" I asked. Chelsea snorted. "With Tyler? Probably forever. That man is a black hole for money. Always has been. I don't know why Brooke can't see that he's just using her." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. That night, I made a decision. I was going to end this, but I was going to do it right. No screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations, no giving Brooke the chance to manipulate me with tears and apologies. I was going to be surgical about it. Step 1, protect my assets. The next morning, while Brooke was at her supposed job, I went to the bank. I closed our shared account and opened a new one in my name only. I transferred all the money, what was left of it, into the new account. I canceled the credit cards that had both our names on them. I changed the passwords on all our shared streaming services and online accounts. It felt good. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my life. Step 2, gather evidence. I started taking screenshots of everything. Brooke's mysterious text messages when she left her phone unattended. Bank records showing the pattern of withdrawals. Photos of her coming and going at odd hours. I even installed a small security camera by our front door, disguised as a package delivery monitor. I felt like a private investigator in some noir movie, except instead of catching cheating spouses in hotel rooms, I was documenting my girlfriend's financial betrayal in excruciating detail. The camera proved especially useful. It showed Brooke leaving the apartment at times when she claimed to be at work. It showed her returning with shopping bags despite claiming to be broke. And most damning of all, it showed Tyler Ray picking her up one afternoon in his beat-up BMW. I watched that footage over and over, feeling my heart turn to ice. There was my girlfriend, the woman I'd trusted with my heart and my bank account, climbing into the car of the man she'd sworn was out of her life forever. Step 3, prepare for the confrontation. I knew Brooke would eventually notice that her access to our shared funds had been cut off. When that happened, she'd either confess everything or double down on the lies. Based on what I'd learned about her character over the past few weeks, I was betting on the latter. I didn't have to wait long. It happened on a Friday evening. I was just getting home from work when my phone started buzzing with frantic texts from Brooke. "Emergency. Need money now." "Please, Andrew, it's urgent." "I'm at the ATM and my card isn't working." "Call me back right now." I stared at the messages, feeling a mixture of rage and satisfaction. The emergency, I knew, was Tyler needing more money for whatever hole he dug himself into this time. And for once, Brooke couldn't just reach into my bank account to solve his problems. My phone rang. Brooke's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. And again. By the time I walked into the apartment, she'd called me 8 times. I poured myself a beer and listened to the voicemails. "Andrew, where are you? I need you to call me back right now. There's been an emergency with my family and I need to send money immediately. My cards aren't working for some reason. Please, please call me back." Lie number 1, her family was fine. I'd checked. "Andrew, this is serious. My sister is in the hospital and needs surgery. I need to wire money for her medical bills. Why aren't you answering your phone?" Lie number 2. Chelsea had posted Instagram stories from her yoga class an hour ago. "Andrew, I'm starting to panic. Something is wrong with our bank account. I can't access any of our money, and I really, really need it right now. Please come to the apartment. We need to figure this out." There it was. Our money. As if she'd contributed a single dollar to that account in the past 6 months. I finished my beer and called her back. "Andrew." She sounded breathless, desperate. "Thank God. Where have you been?" "Work, same as always." "Listen, there's something wrong with our bank account. I can't access any of the money, and there's a family emergency. I need you to go to the bank right now and figure out what's happening." "What kind of family emergency?" I asked calmly. "My sister. She's in the hospital. She needs surgery and they want payment up front." "That's funny," I said. "I just saw Chelsea's Instagram story. She's at hot yoga." Silence. That's not... "Andrew, why are you being like this? I need your help." "Where are you right now, Brooke?" I'm at the hospital with Chelsea." "Which hospital?" "Presbyterian." "That's interesting, because I'm looking at the security footage from our front door, and it shows you leaving the apartment 20 minutes ago, alone." More silence. "Andrew, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've gotten very good at explaining things lately." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, probably trying to figure out which lie to tell next. "Come home," I said. "We need to talk." "But the only emergency is that Tyler Ray needs more money, and you can't steal it from me anymore." The line went silent. 20 minutes later, Brooke burst through the front door like a woman possessed. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and she had the wild look of someone whose carefully constructed world was collapsing around them. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I protected myself." "You can't just freeze our accounts without telling me. They're my accounts now, and I can do whatever I want with my money." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "Your money? Andrew, we're a couple. We share everything." "Do we? When's the last time you contributed to rent, or groceries, or anything?" "I've been going through a rough patch." "No, you've been funding Tyler Ray's gambling addiction with my paycheck." All the color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots, the text messages, the bank records, the security footage of her getting into Tyler's car. "I know about all of it, Brooke. The lies to our friends, the fake emergencies, the secret meetings with your supposedly ex-boyfriend. I know you've been bleeding me dry to pay off his debts." She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Then explain it to me." "Tyler. He's in trouble. Real trouble. These people he owes money to, they're dangerous. They threaten to hurt him if he doesn't pay up. And that's your problem because I care about him. We have history together." "You're supposed to have history with me, too. We've been together for 2 years, Brooke. I thought we had a future." Tears started streaming down her face. "We do. Andrew, I love you. This thing with Tyler, it's just temporary. Once he gets back on his feet, he's never going to get back on his feet. He's a gambling addict and a user, and you're enabling him. You don't understand. He's changed. He's trying to get clean. With my money. I'll pay you back. Every penny." "How? You don't have a job." She looked confused. "What do you mean? I called your company, Brooke. You were fired 3 months ago for excessive absences." The last of her defenses crumbled. She sank onto the couch, sobbing. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "Tyler said if I could just help him this one time, he'd leave town and never bother me again. But then he needed more and more, and I couldn't stop. So you decided to destroy our relationship instead. I thought I could fix everything before you found out." I looked at this woman I'd thought I loved, this woman I'd planned to marry, and felt nothing but disgust. "Pack your things," I said quietly. "Andrew, please. Pack your things and get out of my apartment." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I know I made mistakes, but we can work through this. People make mistakes." "Mistakes are forgetting to pay a bill or showing up late for dinner. What you did was calculated betrayal over months. You lied to my face every single day. You stole from me. You used my reputation to con our friends. That's not a mistake, Brooke. That's who you are." I walked to the bedroom and started pulling her clothes out of the closet, throwing them into garbage bags. "Stop!" she screamed, lunging after me. "Those are my things." "Then take them and leave." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Andrew, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I love you." I turned to look at her, and she must have seen something in my face that scared her because she let go and stepped back. "If you loved me," I said, You wouldn't have spent the last 3 months making me feel crazy for suspecting what you were doing. You wouldn't have stolen from our friends using my name. You wouldn't have chosen Tyler Ray over the man who would have given you everything. I finished packing her clothes and dropped the bags by the front door. You have 1 hour to get anything else you need. After that, I'm changing the locks. She stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face, looking like she wanted to say something else. But what was there to say? We both knew this was over. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. But you did mean for it to go somewhere. That's the problem. After she left, I sat alone in the apartment we'd shared, surrounded by the debris of our relationship. I should have felt sad or angry or something. Instead, I felt empty, hollowed out. But also, for the first time in months, I felt free. I thought getting rid of Brooke would be the end of it. I was wrong. The real nightmare began 3 days later when I started getting phone calls from our mutual friends. Angry phone calls. How could you do this to her? Jennifer from work demanded over the phone. She's homeless, Andrew. Homeless. She made her choices, I said calmly. She said you threw her out without warning over some misunderstanding about money. Is that what she told you? She said you accused her of stealing, which is insane. Brooke wouldn't hurt a fly. I almost laughed. Jennifer, did you loan Brooke $300 last month? Well, yes, but that was for emergency car repairs. Except her car works fine, and she used that money to pay off her ex-boyfriend's gambling debts. Silence. That's not... She wouldn't... Ask her to pay you back. See what excuse she gives you. The line went silent. But Jennifer was just the beginning. Over the next week, I got similar calls from Mike, from our friend Sarah, from Brooke's coworker Lisa. The story was always the same. I was the villain who'd heartlessly abandoned poor, innocent Brooke over some trivial disagreement. What made it worse was that some of them believed her, or wanted to believe her, because the alternative, that they'd been conned by someone they trusted, was too uncomfortable to accept. The situation came to a head the following Friday when I walked into Murphy's Pub, our usual hangout spot, to meet some friends for drinks. The moment I walked in, the entire table went quiet. Well, well, said David, one of our longtime friends. Look who decided to show up. Hey guys, I said, sliding into an empty chair. How's everyone doing? Better than some people, Sarah muttered. I ordered a beer and tried to pretend everything was normal, but the tension at the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. So, David said after a few minutes of awkward silence, we heard about you and Brooke. Yeah, it's over. She's staying at a women's shelter, Sarah said accusingly. A shelter, Andrew. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Lisa leaned forward, her eyes flashing. She's sleeping on a cot surrounded by strangers because you kicked her out of your apartment. I kicked her out because she was stealing from me. That's not what she says. I'm sure it isn't. Mike, who'd been quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't know what happened between you two, but throwing someone out on the street seems pretty harsh. She wasn't thrown out on the street. She had options. She chose not to use them. What options? Sarah demanded. She could have asked Tyler Ray to help her. You know, the ex-boyfriend she's been secretly seeing and giving money to for the past 3 months. The table erupted. That's ridiculous. Brooke would never... You're being paranoid. I pulled out my phone and started showing them the evidence. The text messages, the bank records, the security footage of Tyler picking her up. One by one, they fell silent as the truth sank in. This doesn't prove anything, David said weakly. Maybe she was just trying to help an old friend. With thousands of dollars of my money? Money she stole from our shared account? She probably meant to tell you. She lied to my face every day for months. She made up stories about family emergencies and medical bills. She borrowed money from all of you using my name and reputation as collateral. I looked around the table at these people I'd considered friends for years. She played all of us, I continued. The only difference is that I figured it out before she could disappear with everything I owned. Sarah shook her head stubbornly. I don't believe it. Brooke isn't capable of something like this. Then ask her to pay back the money she borrowed from you. I will. Good. And when she gives you some sob story about why she can't, remember this conversation. I finished my beer and stood up. Where are you going? Mike asked. Home. I don't need to sit here and be judged by people who refuse to see the truth. Andrew, wait. But I was already walking away. The next few weeks were lonely. Most of our mutual friends chose Brooke's side, either because they genuinely believed her lies or because it was easier than admitting they'd been fooled. I found myself eating lunch alone at work, spending weekends by myself, avoiding places where I might run into people who'd decided I was the bad guy. It hurt. These were people I'd known for years, people I'd trusted, and they'd thrown me over for someone who'd been systematically deceiving all of us. But the isolation also gave me time to think, and what I thought about, more and more, was revenge. Not the kind of revenge that involved violence or illegal activity. I wasn't going to key Tyler's car or spread malicious rumors about Brooke online, but I wanted them to face consequences for what they'd done. Real consequences. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Chelsea. Brooke's sister called me on a Tuesday evening, sounding tired and frustrated. "Andrew, it's Chelsea. Can we talk?" "Sure. What's up?" "It's about Brooke and Tyler. I think you were right about everything." She told me that Brooke had been staying with her since leaving the shelter, and the experience had been eye-opening. Brooke was constantly on the phone with Tyler, always stressed about money, always making excuses for why she couldn't look for a job or get her life together. "She asked me to loan her $500 yesterday," Chelsea said, "for rent money, so she could get her own place, but then I saw her giving cash to Tyler outside a casino." "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I feel so stupid. She's been lying to everyone, hasn't she?" "Yeah, she has." "What she did to you, it's unforgivable. You're a good guy, Andrew. You deserved better." "Thanks, that means a lot." "I want to help you." That surprised me. "Help me how?" "I have access to Brooke's social media accounts, her email, her text messages. She never changed her passwords after you broke up because she's not very tech-savvy." I felt a spark of interest. And I think people should know the truth about what she did, about what they both did. What Chelsea showed me over the next few days was damning. Text message conversations between Brooke and Tyler that laid out their entire scheme, emails to other men, guys I didn't even know, asking for money with sob stories about sick relatives and emergency expenses, social media posts where she played the victim, painting me as an abusive, controlling boyfriend while simultaneously asking for donations to help her get back on her feet. But the most revealing discovery was a series of messages between Brooke and Tyler from just before our breakup. Messages that showed this wasn't just about gambling debts. "Once we get enough saved up, we can disappear," Tyler had written. "New city, new identities, new life together." "How much more do you think we need?" Brooke had replied. "Another 10 grand should do it. Keep working on Andrew. He's good for it." They'd been planning to rob me blind and skip town together. The gambling debt story was just a cover. They'd been running a long con, and I'd been the mark. I stared at those messages for a long time, feeling something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated predation. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I was going to do about it. The plan came together over the next 2 weeks. It was elegant in its simplicity, devastating in its scope, and completely legal. I wasn't going to break any laws or hurt anyone physically, but I was going to make sure that Brooke and Tyler faced the consequences of their actions in the most public, humiliating way possible. The first step was gathering allies. Chelsea was already on board, disgusted by her sister's behavior and eager to help expose the truth. Anita, my friend from work, was more than happy to assist once I showed her the evidence. Even Mason, my ex-cop brother, agreed to help after seeing the extent of Brooke's deception. "This is some next-level sociopath stuff," he said, scrolling through the text messages on my phone. "You're lucky you found out when you did. I want them to pay for it." "What did you have in mind?" I told him. He grinned. "I like it. It's creative. And best of all, it's perfectly legal." The second step was reconnaissance. I needed to know where Brooke and Tyler were, what they were doing, and when they'd be most vulnerable to public exposure. This turned out to be easier than expected. Despite supposedly being broke and desperate, they were still frequenting their usual haunts. Tyler was still gambling at the underground poker games in the warehouse district. Brooke was still going to her yoga classes and brunches with friends, apparently funded by whatever money they'd managed to squeeze out of their other victims. They'd also gotten sloppy. Maybe they thought they were safe now that I was out of the picture. Maybe they were just too arrogant to believe they'd face any real consequences. Either way, they were about to learn otherwise. The third step was timing. I needed an event where both of them would be present, preferably with an audience of people who knew us. Fortunately, our friend group had a monthly trivia night at Murphy's Pub, and according to Sarah's Facebook page, both Brooke and Tyler were planning to attend this month's event. Perfect. The night of the trivia event, I arrived early and set up at a table near the back of the pub. I'd brought my laptop, a small portable speaker, and a flash drive containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered over the past month. Chelsea was there too, sitting at a different table to avoid suspicion. Brooke and Tyler walked in together around 8 o'clock, hand in hand like a couple of teenagers. She was wearing a dress I'd bought her for her birthday, and he was wearing what looked like a new leather jacket. Apparently business was good. They joined the table with David, Sarah, Mike, and a few others, the same friends who'd chosen their side over mine after the breakup. I watched them laugh and joke and play the part of the wronged victims, and I felt that familiar cold anger settle in my chest. At 9:30, right in the middle of the trivia game, I stood up and walked to the front of the pub. "Excuse me," I said loudly, getting everyone's attention. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have something I need to share with everyone." The room went quiet. I could see Brooke's face go white as she realized what was happening. "Some of you know that my girlfriend Brooke and I broke up recently," I continued, connecting my laptop to the pub's sound system. "She's told you her version of events. Now I'd like to share mine." "Andrew, don't—" Brooke started to stand up. "Sit down," Tyler hissed, grabbing her arm. I clicked play on the first audio file. Tyler's voice filled the pub, clear as day. "Once we get enough saved up, we can disappear. New city, new identities, new life together." Then Brooke's voice. "How much more do you think we need?" "Another 10 grand should do it. Keep working on Andrew. He's good for it." The silence in the pub was deafening. I could see people's faces changing as they processed what they were hearing. I played more clips. Brooke asking other men for money. Tyler discussing which of their friends would be easiest to con. Brooke laughing about how gullible I was and how easy it had been to manipulate me. "Stop it," Brooke screamed, jumping to her feet. "This is private. You can't do this." "Actually, I can," I said calmly. "These are recordings of conversations involving fraud and theft. I have every right to share them." I clicked to the next slide on my presentation, bank records showing the systematic theft from our shared account. "Over the past 4 months," I announced to the room, "Brooke Lawson stole over $6,000 from our joint account to fund Tyler Ray's gambling addiction and their plan to skip town together." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. "She also borrowed money from many of you under false pretenses, claiming I had gambling debts or medical bills." I looked directly at Jennifer. "She borrowed $300 from you for car repairs. Her car was never broken." I turned to Mike. "She got $200 from you, claiming I was too proud to ask for help with medical bills. I don't have any medical bills." One by one, I went through the list of people she'd conned, showing receipts and evidence for each lie. "You're all insane," Tyler shouted, standing up and knocking over his chair. "This is harassment." "No," I said. "This is accountability." I played the final audio clip, a conversation between Tyler and Brooke from just 3 days ago, where they discussed their plans to target a new victim, a lonely widower Tyler had met at a casino. "We've done this before," Brooke's voice said clearly. "We know what we're doing." The pub erupted in angry voices. People were shouting at Brooke and Tyler, demanding their money back, calling them thieves and liars. Several people were recording the confrontation with their phones. Brooke tried to run for the exit, but Sarah blocked her path. "You borrowed $400 from me," Sarah shouted. "You said it was for your grandmother's funeral." "Your grandmother is alive and well," Chelsea called out from her table. "She's at bingo tonight." Tyler made his own attempt to leave, but Mike grabbed his arm. "Where's my money, you piece of garbage?" "Get your hands off me." The situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. I could see the pub manager reaching for the phone, probably to call the police. Time for the final act. I pulled out a stack of papers and held them up. "I've filed complaints with the police about the theft," I announced. "I've also filed reports with the state attorney general's office about the fraud, and I've prepared a detailed dossier about their activities that I'm sending to every employer, landlord, and financial institution in the city." Brooke's face went from white to green. "You can't do that." "I can, and I have. You wanted to destroy my reputation? Congratulations. You've destroyed your own instead." Tyler lunged at me, but Mason appeared out of nowhere and grabbed him. "I wouldn't," my brother said quietly. "Assault charges would just make everything worse for you." The pub manager stepped forward. "I think it's time for everyone to leave." The crowd began to disperse, but not before several people cornered Brooke and Tyler, demanding repayment of their loans. I could hear Brooke crying, making excuses, promising to pay everyone back somehow. Too little, too late. As I packed up my laptop, David approached me. "Andrew," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology." "Yes, you do." "We should have listened to you. We should have believed you." "Yes, you should have." He looked uncomfortable. "Is there anything we can do to make this right?" "You can remember this the next time someone tries to tell you that the victim is actually the villain." I walked out of the pub and into the cool Denver night, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could still hear Brooke sobbing and Tyler making angry threats that everyone was ignoring. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. Holy shit, that was amazing. Then another from Anita. Remind me never to get on your bad side. And finally, one from Mason. Proud of you, little brother. I smiled and headed home to my apartment, my clean, honest, Brooke-free apartment, where I planned to open a bottle of wine and toast the end of the worst chapter of my life. The fallout from that night at Murphy's Pub was swift and merciless. By the next morning, videos of the confrontation had spread throughout our social circle and beyond. Someone had live-streamed the entire thing on social media, and it was being shared and reshared with comments ranging from shock to outrage to grudging admiration for my tactical approach. Brooke and Tyler had become social pariahs overnight, but I wasn't done yet. Over the next week, I methodically followed through on every threat I'd made that night. I filed detailed police reports about the theft, complete with bank records, text message evidence, and witness statements. I submitted complaints to the State Attorney General's Fraud Division. I sent comprehensive dossiers to local employers, rental agencies, and financial institutions, warning them about Brooke and Tyler's history of financial manipulation. The response was immediate and devastating. Tyler was banned from every casino and poker game in the city. His credit cards were canceled. His landlord evicted him. The part-time job he'd managed to hold down for 3 months fired him after seeing the videos online. Brooke fared even worse. The women's shelter where she'd been staying asked her to leave after other residents complained about her presence. The temp agency she'd been using to find work dropped her as a client. Even her yoga studio revoked her membership after the instructor saw the social media posts. But the most satisfying consequence came from an unexpected source. I was at work the following Tuesday when I got a call from Detective Maria Santos with the Denver Police Department. Mr. Collins, I'm calling about the complaint you filed regarding Brooke Lawson and Tyler Ray. Yes? We've been investigating your case, and I wanted to let you know that we've uncovered additional victims. It appears Ms. Lawson and Mr. Ray have been running similar schemes throughout the city for at least 2 years. I felt a surge of vindication. How many victims? At least 12 that we've identified so far. Mostly older men, recently divorced or widowed. The total amount stolen appears to be in excess of $40,000. $40,000. And I'd thought $6,000 was bad. What happens now? We're building a case for wire fraud, identity theft, and organized financial crimes. Both suspects will be arrested within the week. After I hung up, I sat in the hospital break room staring at my phone, trying to process what I'd just learned. Brooke and Tyler weren't just opportunistic thieves who targeted me because I was convenient. They were professional con artists who'd been systematically victimizing vulnerable people for years. I thought about all those nights when Brooke had come home late, claiming to be working overtime or out with girlfriends. All those mysterious phone calls and text messages. All those times she'd needed emergency money for fabricated crises. She hadn't been cheating on me with Tyler in the traditional sense. She'd been working with him. They were business partners in a criminal enterprise, and I'd been both their victim and their cover story. The realization should have made me angrier, but instead it brought a strange sense of closure. This wasn't about love or relationships or personal failings. This was about criminals who'd chosen the wrong target. The arrests happened on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Chelsea called me with a detailed report. They got Tyler at that dive bar on Colfax, she said, barely able to contain her excitement. Brooke was staying in some fleabag motel, and they arrested her in the parking lot. Both of them in handcuffs, both of them crying like babies. How do you know all this? I may have been following the police scanner, and I may have driven by the motel right after it happened. Chelsea. What? I wanted to see justice being served. And let me tell you, it was beautiful. The local news picked up the story that evening. Local couple arrested in multi-year fraud scheme, read the headline. The report included interviews with several victims, including a 70-year-old widower who'd lost his entire savings to Brooke's fake cancer treatment scam. Watching that man describe how Brooke had convinced him she was dying and needed money for experimental treatments made my stomach turn. The woman I'd thought I loved, the woman I'd planned to marry, was a predator who targeted the most vulnerable people she could find. My phone rang during the newscast. It was Jennifer from work. Andrew, I just saw the news. I can't believe... I knew she took money from people, but this... It's hard to process, I agreed. That poor old man. How could she do that to someone? The same way she did it to all of us. She's very good at finding people's weaknesses and exploiting them. I feel like such an idiot for believing her lies about you. You weren't an idiot. You were a decent person who couldn't imagine someone being that calculating and cruel. Still, I should have listened to you. I got similar calls from Mike, Sarah, David, and several other friends over the next few days. Everyone wanted to apologize, to make amends, to somehow undo the weeks when they treated me like the villain in Brooke's sob story. I accepted their apologies graciously, but I didn't forget how quickly they turned on me when things got complicated. Real friends, I realized, would have at least heard me out before choosing sides. The trial was set for 6 months later, but it never happened. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the prospect of decades in prison, both Brooke and Tyler accepted plea deals. Tyler got 8 years for his role as the primary organizer of the scheme. Brooke got 5 years, with the possibility of parole in 3 if she made restitution to the victims. I attended the sentencing hearing, sitting in the back of the courtroom as the judge read out their crimes in clinical, legal language. Brooke looked thin and pale in her orange jumpsuit, a far cry from the confident, beautiful woman who'd manipulated me for months. Tyler just looked angry, glaring at everyone in the courtroom like we were all responsible for his situation. When it was over, I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright Colorado sunshine, feeling like I could finally breathe again. My phone buzzed with a text from Anita. "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, "Free." And I was. Free from the lies, free from the manipulation, free from the constant feeling that something was wrong, but not knowing what, free to trust my instincts again, free to build relationships with people who were worthy of trust. The money was never fully recovered. Even with their assets seized and their future earnings garnished, there simply wasn't enough to repay all the victims. I got back about half of what they'd stolen from me. The elderly widower got almost nothing, but that was okay. The money had never really been the point. The point was that actions have consequences, that people who prey on others eventually face justice, that sometimes, if you're smart and patient and methodical about it, you can make sure that justice is both swift and public. 6 months after the sentencing, I ran into Chelsea at a coffee shop downtown. She looked good, healthier, happier, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "How are you doing?" I asked. "Better, much better. It's amazing how much easier life is when you're not constantly worrying about what kind of trouble your sister is getting into." "Any regrets about helping me expose her?" Chelsea shook her head firmly. "None. What she did was evil, Andrew. She hurt so many people, and she would have kept hurting people if you hadn't stopped her." "I didn't stop her. The police did." "You gave them the evidence they needed. You made sure everyone knew the truth. That took courage." I thought about that conversation for a long time afterward. Courage. I'd never thought of my actions as courageous. Necessary, yes. Satisfying, absolutely. But courageous? Maybe Chelsea was right. Maybe it did take courage to stand up to people who'd wronged you, even when everyone around you was telling you to let it go, to move on, to be the bigger person. Maybe sometimes being the bigger person means making sure the smaller people face consequences for their actions. A year later, I was dating again. Her name was Rachel, and she was a teacher at a local elementary school. She was kind, honest, and refreshingly straightforward about everything from her feelings to her finances. When she said she loved me, I believed her. When she said she'd be somewhere at a certain time, she was there. It was amazing how simple relationships could be when both people were actually decent human beings. We were having dinner at a nice restaurant downtown when she asked me about my previous relationship. "You mentioned you had a bad breakup," she said. "What happened?" I told her the whole story. The lies, the theft, the systematic manipulation, the public confrontation, the arrests, the trial. I watched her face carefully as I spoke, looking for signs of judgment or discomfort. Instead, she looked impressed. "Wow," she said when I finished. "You really don't mess around when someone betrays you." "Is that a problem?" She smiled. "Are you kidding? It's one of the things I like most about you. You don't let people walk all over you, and you don't let them get away with hurting others. The world needs more people like that." That night, as we walked back to her apartment hand in hand, I realized that my experience with Brooke and Tyler had taught me something valuable. Not just about recognizing red flags or protecting myself from manipulation, but about the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Especially when it's difficult or uncomfortable. Some people might call what I did to Brooke and Tyler revenge. And maybe it was, in part. But it was also justice. It was accountability. It was making sure that people who prey on others face real consequences for their actions. And sometimes that's exactly what the world needs.